So for our next video in the all-round apes area, I've recruited a little assistant here because what we're talking about is evolution. And evolution is this idea that you select for specific traits that have an advantage. And my little beautiful friend here, Roxy, her brethren are separated into all of these different breeds, and the breeds are selected for based on certain traits. And those traits are selected by a breeder selecting the ones that best represent those traits, and the outcome is an incredible animal like this. All right, so the idea of natural selection is that there isn't a single breeder who is selecting which ones get to mate and make offspring. So instead, there's got to be something else which helps development go from something that is primitive to something that is more evolutionarily advanced. Oh, all right. And so what we need, and the idea here is it's natural selection. And so what we have to have in natural selection or evolution is we have to have something that's going to help us choose. But there's always been this kind of fight between this idea that evolution has some way says something bad about religion. And this slide is here strictly to show you that there are basically across all denominations, there's imams, there's rabbis, there's priests, there's even Pope John Paul II here, who state that really there's no conflict between evolution and the doctrine of faith regarding man and his vocation. I'm going to let my little evolutionary friend here down. And then all this tells us is that we don't need to put a separation between this idea of evolution and religion. There's not one that's allowed and one that's not. So what you need in order to get natural selection or evolution by natural selection is you need to have genetic diversity. There need to be a lot of different individuals with different traits. So that's true. We see it if you look around at any of the people that you're not allowed to get close to right now, you can see that all of those people are different than you. Many of them, the ones that you can see are your family, or those are going to be fairly similar to you. But if you go outside of your family, you're going to see people of huge genetic diversity. And our genetic diversity right now, as we'll talk about later, is actually way lower than it used to be. Then what you need is selective pressure. You need something that's going to select one trait over another. In other words, what you need is you need something that's hard, makes it hard for you to survive. If we're talking about bacteria who are evolving, those bacteria are often evolving against is antibiotics that we use to treat things. But for humans, what we're talking about are things like drought or flood or heat or famine or disease, such as what we're in now. So what we're in now is we're in a situation where we have a virus that's going around. And so what's happening is there's a selective pressure here. And those people who have a really strong immune system can mount a very strong immune response to something like this virus are going to have a greater likelihood of succeeding and having offspring. The next thing you need is time. And here we're not talking about hours, days, minutes. What we're talking about is we're talking about generations. So in humans, this takes thousands of years because each generation is 20 years. That's why we give these kind of names to generations, Generation X, Generation Z, all of these different things. Every 20 years, we get a different generation of people because it takes about 20 years for us to become reproductively active or reproductively sufficient. In bacteria, by example, they double in about 20 to 30 minutes. So instead of taking thousands of years, it takes days to weeks because their doubling time is 20 minutes, where our doubling time is 20 years. So if it's going to take us thousands of years, it's going to take a bacteria far less time to evolve. So the major pressure that we had during human evolution was scarcity of nutrients and a hot environment. So any variation that'll improve hunting or gathering of food would have been selected for. And the other thing that you would have had is if you could do it and maintain a cooler body temperature, that was also selected for. So what we're going to see are the things that we evolved for, are the things that allowed us to get more food while staying cool.